Q&A, it's a Q&A, it's a Q&A, Q&A today, hey, Q&A, that's all I got. That's all I got. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Mike DiLisio. Welcome to this Monday afternoon, at least here in South Florida, Q&A. I am thrilled to be here. Very much looking forward to chatting with the best live chat in the business, the Dice Tower live chat. So hopefully everything is working as far as technological goes, sound and video. So let's see if I get some confirmation in the chat here. There we go. James Cartwright. Audio and video fine. James, thank you so much. You are very helpful. Hey, before we get started, you know what I like? I like a good contest. How about you? You like a contest? Who doesn't like a good contest? Well, we've got a contest for you today. We are going to be giving away a $10 gift certificate to Game Nerds, sponsor of the Dice Tower, a fantastic online gaming store for you. So this is a worldwide contest. If you would like to win a $10 gift certificate to Game Nerds, and really, who wouldn't? All you have to do is email us at contest@dicetower.com. In the subject line, you're going to be putting Cuban Sandwich Day. That's right. Did you know? Apparently, it's Cuban Sandwich Day today. I did not know that. Now, I will tell you, I had had a Cuban sandwich before I moved to South Florida, maybe once or twice, but they are everywhere down here and they are fantastic. I do like a good Cuban sandwich, and there are a lot of good Cuban sandwiches here today. There's also a question, however, that you need to answer to be eligible to win this fantastic prize. The question is this: what is your favorite sandwich condiment? Look, these are the burning questions that demand answers. What is your favorite sandwich condiment? Yes, so honestly speaking, as I try to be honest with you all if I can. That's my least favorite part of a Cuban sandwich is the mustard. Now I know that's a controversial statement. A lot of people love their mustard, but that I don't order the Cuban sandwich without mustard because I want to keep the pure experience. And I don't hate mustard, but it's definitely not something I usually choose to put in. But for the sake of a Cuban sandwich, I keep it in there. So again, email us at contest@dicetower.com. In the subject line, put Cuban Sandwich Day and answer the question, what is your favorite sandwich condiment? Good luck, everybody. I hope you all win, although that is not possible. Only one of you will win, but there we go. Now, let's get to that Q&A, shall we? Looks like we've got good to go with our technological issues. I'm really hesitating to put on the old man specs, but I do want to make sure that I'm seeing the questions well enough. So I'm doing okay now, but they may show up at some time. They may show up. Let's scroll back here. We've got a lot of our usual favorites in the chat. Well, you're all favorites. I don't choose favorites. That's a Chris Yee move. I don't choose favorites. You're all my favorites. But we've got Timon and Loopy and Nick and Jason, and I don't want to, I've already mentioned some people, and the people I haven't mentioned are all upset with me, but I'm sorry. Okay, let's find some questions. I've already seen a whole bunch of things, and I always get behind, but I'm probably going to get behind again, too. So we have a lot of pre-game chatting here. Nathan says, I'm here for some Mike DiLisioso, and then I got to head back to my game of Imperial Assault. That's a game that has slipped through my cracks a little bit there. I had Imperial Assault at one time. I got it for a really cheap, no, I may have gotten it free when I worked at a game store. I think I actually got it free, and I just never got it played. Now, this was, I believe, before they had come out with the ability to play it solo, and I might have done that otherwise, but I've heard good things, just haven't had a chance to play it. So hope you enjoy that when you get back to it, Nathan. Let's look through some. Here we go, our first question. Jason Dunham asks, Mike, do you look down on me because I house rule some of my games? Absolutely, Jason. No, not at all. Not at all. I said on the one annoying rule, I'm assuming that this is where this is coming from, the top 10 with the one annoying rule, that I don't typically house rule games. I try to avoid that. It's just something that, for me, I don't know. I just feel kind of uncomfortable with it. I don't know. But I never begrudge other people from doing it. It's your game. Play the game you want to play, the way you want to play the game. So I do not look down upon anybody who house rules their games. I do have to admit, if I'm playing a game with somebody and they're teaching me the game, I've never played the game before, and they preface it with saying, now, here's the way the game's supposed to be played. I always house rule it. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to bite my tongue. But there's going to be a little bit inside of me that's going to be like, really? Come on now. And if it needs to be house ruled, anyway, that's just my thoughts. That's what you came here for. You came here for the honest truth, people, and I'm going to give it to you, ugly truth and all. All right. Jason, I do not look down upon you. Ooh. Top 5 pastas, Adrian. I am a fan of pastas. I tend to like the tubular pastas. Those are my favorite. I like just the little bit of extra oomph they have over the kind of like spaghetti pastas. So I would say that my 2 favorite pastas are very, very similar. They're almost exactly the same thing. I like penne and I like ziti. Those are my favorites because they're tubes, and so they've got a nice little bit of, you get a good al dente. It's easy to get al dente with a ziti or a penne. And then also you get so much surface area for the sauce, if it's a good sauce. And if it's not a good sauce, why are you eating it? But penne, ziti, I like rotini, which is that spiral pasta. Let's go with one noodle type. Well, they're all noodles, but you know what I'm getting at, I think. I do like fettuccine, especially if it's fresh. Fresh fettuccine is fantastic. Well, all pasta is better fresh, let's just be honest, but it's not easy, for many of us to make pasta. It can be time consuming and labor intensive, and especially if you make it the way my grandmother made it, which is not using, like a machine. You're making it and you're putting it through the roller. And anyway, so that's 4, right? Penne, ziti, rotini, linguine. I said fettuccine maybe. Linguine and fettuccine are, anyway. Let's go with bow tie. I like a bow tie pasta too. All right, so there you go. My top 5 pastas. Good question. Nick Markley, the best thing I ate this weekend. This was not a terribly exciting weekend for me, food-wise. So probably, I had a little bit of gelato. And that was fantastic. I do love me a good gelato. Pasta and gelato. Look, there's a meal for champions right there. No carbs. Absolutely devoid of all carbohydrates. Pasta, washed down with a little bit of gelato. Reed Van asks, Mike, do you think the 2 new factions in the Scythe expansion, Invaders from Afar, are actually worth the purchase? This is going to be a bit of a it depends answer, which I know that those aren't the best, but I'll tell you what it depends upon. If you play the game enough that you are bored with the base game factions, that you already feel like you've kind of figured out how you like to play them, then yeah, I think absolutely, especially if you can get it on sale. A lot of times you can get these expansions on sale, perhaps at Game Nerds. Anyway, if you can get it for a good price, absolutely. The one expansion for Scythe that I would make the last one you get would be the Wind Gambit. I don't love the airships. I think they're okay. The alternate wind conditions are the best part of that expansion to me, for me. But if I'm going to go with my favorite expansion, is going to be Fenris, right? Because I love that campaign. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some stuff in there that can add to the replayability of the game. I'll just leave it at that. Then would be Invaders from Afar, and then last, if you really wanted to be a completionist, go ahead and get the Wind Gambit. But I don't even know that you need that one. Rayleigh Josh 45, maybe? Perhaps? Hey Mike, I've been wondering this for a long time. What are the lyrics for the Sporadically Bored theme song, and where did it come from? Well, for those of you who are not aware, I am a co-host with Dan Hughes of Dan and Cora fame of a podcast called Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan. That is, as far as Tom knows, a board game podcast because it's on the Dice Tower Network. Let's not really get into the fact that probably 5% of the podcast is actually about board games and 95% is about nonsense. But the theme song comes from someone named Singing Sadie, her name is, and Dan found that song. I don't know all of the lyrics to the song. It's a very, silly song. I know why you're blue. I know that much. I will tell you this. When Dan proposed that, this was years ago when we first started, before we actually started, we had the concept and we knew kind of what we were going to do, or at least to some extent, and we were thinking about the theme song. And Dan found this and he sent it to me, and I loved it because it's terribly obnoxious, but it's very much an earworm too, I think. I played it for my wife, and I think I've mentioned this before, but she had the most visceral negative reaction I've ever seen. Like, she absolutely hated this thing. Hated it. And that convinced me more than anything that this was the way to go, because that was kind of the point, was to make kind of an obnoxious theme song, but one that kind of stuck with your head. And so yeah, that's Singing Sadie is her name. I think you can find her on iTunes, I think. Nick Markley says a $10 giveaway. That's right. If you missed it, go back to the beginning after we're done and check out the contest for today. Daniel Gross says, I wish you could still do solo playthroughs like you did on your original channel. Daniel, it's interesting you mentioned this because I've actually been talking with the powers that be, Tom Vassell. I've been talking with the powers that be about potentially restarting some solo playthroughs here on the Dice Tower. And so that is very likely going to happen. Now, I will tell you, it will probably be after Gen Con, because there is a lot that still needs to be done. We've got the one of the Dice Tower retreats and then Gen Con kind of back to back. And so I'm not going to be starting anything like that beforehand. But after we get back from Gen Con, my hope is to put together a series of solo playthroughs, likely going to be live streaming them here from the Dice Tower studios. And it will likely have the title of the DiLisio factor, because that's another thing that was brought up, I think, in a live chat before. I don't even remember where it started. Like most of these things, I don't remember where it came from, but something, I don't know if it was me or somebody else, brought up this idea of a show called the DiLisio factor, and I might do that. I might use that title for a series of solo playthroughs on the channel, because I enjoy doing them. I thought they were a lot of fun, but I just had to kind of make sure that I was able to fit it in with everything else going on. So that may happen. Mm-hmm. Chef Eddie asks, I'm curious if you're a real chef, Eddie. Are you going to do a reaction video to the secret top 10 lists that you didn't get invited to make? No, not going to make a reaction video. Look, I didn't want to say this, but now I feel like here, it's been brought up, so I'm going to say it. Look, my two lists, my casual 2-gamer lists and my advanced 2-gamer lists, were impeccable. I'll put it out there. They were perfect. They were impeccable. Therefore, I didn't need a super secret list because mine already fit perfectly in the allotted areas. You'll notice Tom and Z kind of had to do a whole bunch of backpedaling. Oh, wait, well, here's these lists in the middle. No. You've got casual and you've got advanced, and I nailed both. There you go. Now, those were two very hard lists to do, by the way. Those were difficult to do. Number one, because I don't play a lot of two-player only games, and I didn't always do it, but I tried to pick exclusively two-player games if I could, and I don't play as many of those as I do other player counts, so I was already feeling like I was a little bit at a disadvantage because I know Z loves two-player games. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough to kind of figure out what is what. We've got a lot of condiment discussion. Robert Yee asks, Hadrian's Wall, have you played in a group? How is it compared to solo? Yes, I have. I've taught it to a couple of groups. I want to say that the largest player count I played it at was 4. The main difference there is going to be really not a lot, even length of time, because you're doing almost everything simultaneously. So I like Hadrian's Wall a lot. I really, verb and write, in this case a flip and write game, it's fantastic. It's a medium weight flip and write game from Garfield, Bobby Hill, designer of that. I believe it's his first game. There really is not a whole lot of interaction. It is very much multiplayer solitaire. You can utilize some icons, basically, some cards that your two neighbors have, but that's about it. The only difference is that if you go more quickly through a round than the other people at the table, you might be kind of sitting around and waiting, and there's not a whole heck of a lot for you to do. You can't plan for your next turn or anything because you have to wait until the card flips. So that's the main difference, is that in a multiplayer game, you have to potentially wait for other people to finish doing what they're doing. But otherwise, it's still a great game. It's not the easiest game to teach. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot. It's 2 sheets of paper, and there's a fair amount to cover. So, good game, though. That's some refreshing water. All right. Adrian says, thanks for putting me on to Imperium Legends. Love the historical feel. Yeah. This is a game, actually 2 games, Imperium Legends and Classics. They are essentially the same game. They just have different civilizations in them. A deck building game, kind of a heavier, I would say, than standard deck building game. And I really like it a lot. It's one that I feel really you probably want to keep to 2 players or less because it can be pretty long. But if you don't mind that and you don't mind a little bit of a learning curve to kind of get up to speed with how the game plays, it's an asymmetric game where each civilization will play differently. It's a really, really slick design. I like it a lot. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those slow burn games. It's getting some buzz now. I think it's been on the BGG hot list, at least somewhat here and there. But I think it's a game that could potentially rise in estimation, especially if they continue to put out some new civilizations, which I imagine they will. But even with the 2 boxes that are out right now, that's more than I think I would even ever need. So not saying I wouldn't look at the other ones, but there's plenty of content out there already for it. James asks, how did you get into board gaming? I think I've probably talked about this a little bit before, but I'll give the short version. I have the classic cliche, I believe, story here of a couple friend of mine introduced me and my partner to Catan. I had no idea at all that these types of games existed. I came in absolutely and completely ignorant to anything outside of either classic card games or the mass market, Monopoly, Sorry, Parcheesi, those types of games that most of us are familiar with. And it was just, it was a mind-blowing experience. It absolutely changed my idea of what games could be. Even I had no concept of victory points. I had no concept of really, this variable setup. The whole thing was absolutely mind-blowing to me, and it started me down the path. The first game I actually bought myself was Lost Cities, the card game. I got that at a game store. And so, yeah, that was the beginnings of my gaming hobby. Genway asks, what's your least favorite type of solo mechanics? This is a tricky one. I think some people might expect me to say the beat your high score. I don't know if that's a mechanic, but I don't mind that depending on the type of game. I think certain puzzle games lend themselves well to that. So it's not that. It probably would be a convoluted spreadsheet style of AI for your opponent. That would probably be, some games almost demand that, but it's not my favorite, especially in games where I think it could have been done more streamlined. So it's hard to say, because really solo mechanics generally refer to how your virtual opponent is administered or controlled. And I talk a lot in my solo reviews about this ratio of time I'm spending on my turn versus time I'm spending on the AI's turn. And generally, I want to be spending more time on my turn than I am on the AI's turn. When that ratio is off, it doesn't create the best experience to me. So I guess I would say that. Much Procrastinate asks, hey Mike, what are your thoughts on board game inserts, like the kind of stuff that Broken Token puts out? They look amazing, but seem to significantly increase the cost of a game. Well, inserts in general, First of all, I work with Tom Vassell, who has no use for inserts really at this point. And he has not changed my mind. I do like a good insert. But I will say I like a good insert. I do think, and this is coming from somebody that really was, well, and still is a big fan of the game trays types of inserts, where you've got things that help with your setup and teardown. That's the key. If an insert can significantly reduce the time of setup and teardown, I'm usually on board. But you brought up the cost component, and that is significant. That can be significant. If it is going to make the cost of the game really out of the realm for many people, then no, I would much rather trade that insert and not have one at all and make it significantly cheaper. I just don't know what the cutoff is there. I'm not savvy enough on the business end of things to know how much those inserts affect the profit margin. Now, for the third-party inserts like Meeple Reality or things like that, I mean, that's fine, but I don't necessarily, I don't know if I own any of those. Oh, Scythe. I own one for Scythe. But that's, I think, it. They're great, but oftentimes they're as much as the price of the game, and maybe even more. So I don't tend to go down that route, although I think it's fine for people that like them. It's just, yeah, they could be a lot of money. Sean says, will you be at Dice Tower West? Absolutely. Looking forward to Dice Tower West. Monica asks, maybe if I can get it up, there we go. How many different games have you soloed in a row? Wow. I don't have the answer just off the top of my head. I've never done like a solo gaming marathon or anything like Tom did. But I'm sure that there are times where I played like a number of small games in a row. My guess would be I've probably played 6 games in a row. Well, gosh, maybe more than that if you count like these really small games, like some of the button shy games you're playing back to back to back to back. But I almost consider that one gaming session. So let's say I'm playing like Sprawlopolis or something that I can play relatively quickly. If I play that 2 or 3 times in a row, I would consider that like one gaming session. So I wouldn't consider, even though it's technically, I guess, 3 games. So if you look at it under those kind of metrics, I would say probably around 6 games would be the most. Not positive though. Another inserts question, what do you think about folded space inserts? I've not tried them. I've heard some good things about them, and I guess this is one where potentially they'd be more inexpensive, so that's cool. But no, I have not tried a folded space insert yet. I have heard good things. Terrier Halo asks, what series are you currently watching on TV, streaming, something? Lots of things. I've mentioned before that my wife and I like to watch some really, really trashy TV. we enjoy watching like 90 Day Fiancé and Married at First Sight. I don't know. We just find them very entertaining. We also, I personally like to watch a lot of documentaries. If I'm streaming things, I watch documentaries constantly. I watched one recently about the actor Val Kilmer on Netflix. It's just called Val. That was really good. I didn't think that I cared anything about Val Kilmer, and I watched a 2-hour documentary on him, and so found that entertaining. I watched, I did finish watching, the Loki, and I watched the WandaVision. I did not finish watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. I watched like the first 4 or 5, maybe, and I kept watching it because I kept waiting to really get into it. It just didn't do it for me. So I just mentioned a moment ago the live stream solo games marathon. I'll tell you, the thought of that does not necessarily appeal to me. If it was something that Tom asked me to do, of course I would do it. Or if it was some type of a stretch goal or something, maybe. I don't, look, that's a lot of stamina. It's a lot of stamina. It's a lot of potential making mistakes, which you're going to do, right? You're going to make mistakes in a live stream. It's going to happen. It's just the way it goes. But the potential for disaster there, oof. Anyway, I'm not chomping at the bit to do that. I'll just put it to you that way. All right, so Robert Yee says, thoughts about ever-escalating games that are busting the 200-plus barrier, and I'm assuming we're talking about money here. Worrying trend to see complete collection of these humongous Kickstarter games. This is a really tricky one. It's tough on a couple of fronts, because I understand completely that it makes it less of a what's the word I'm searching for here? It makes it less accessible. That's the word. When you have games increasingly shooting up to these very, very high MSRPs, it makes it so that less people are going to potentially have the chance to interact with and play these games. Now, I know that sometimes you can go to like libraries and places like that you can have a chance to try these out. But, that's going to even affect a place like a library that has, I'm assuming, a limited budget that they can spend on getting these things into their libraries. In the library. So I understand that. However, also, on the other end, I think this is a hobby. This is a recreational leisure hobby. This is not a need. This is a want. And so I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion about it other than if these prices are going to continue to increase, I believe that that should be reflected in what you're getting as a product. So in other words, if the price of a game now is $120, that would have been $90 or $80 2 years ago, and it's the exact same components, that to me is a little bit off, because I don't know that the costs of scale have gone up that much. Now that I say that, we've got all of this stuff going on with the increased price of cardboard and paper, and the increased cost of shipping and importing. So maybe that is going to be playing into it. This is a very convoluted and roundabout way to say that, yes, I understand the concern. I'm hoping that that's not the general trend, and that there's still going to be a large variety of games that people can get across all costs. I really certainly hope that we don't stop seeing small box card games or micro games or things like that, or even the $30 or $40 midweight euros. I mean, those days are almost gone already. Yeah, I understand the concern. I feel the concern, but I also try to couple that with this is a leisure hobby as well. Let's take a look. Ego Blend 2. When a game has a silly first player rule, do you follow it or just pick randomly? Just pick randomly. Yeah, I don't begrudge it necessarily, although sometimes if it's egregiously stupid, I'll make a comment about it. But no, I generally just pick randomly. You know, the first player thing, I think it's fun when you can do it well, when it fits in the theme, when it's something, you know, funny and silly thematically, sure, but I almost never pay attention to it. So. Brian Hardwick, how do you pick which games you want to review? Well, this is dependent on a couple of things. Number one is that, you know, it will discuss as a crew here in the studio. Maybe a particular game might be more suited to one person or another. You know, certain games that Tom maybe gravitates towards, or Z, or myself, or Chris, or Roy. You know, we will sometimes have those discussions. If it's a game maybe that I personally have backed through Kickstarter or GameFound, and maybe it's something that wasn't backed by the Dice Tower Library, that's something that I might be more likely to review. I do most of the solo reviews, so that kind of is one of my areas of focus. I know Z will occasionally do a solo review as well, but that's really what it's about. We discuss it as a group as games come in, and usually it's very rare that there's ever kind of a, oh, I thought I was going to do this one type of a thing. No, we usually know who's doing what. Sometimes Tom will specifically request, hey, Mike, can you do this one? Or Z, can you do that one? For any number of reasons. Am I a rules stickler? I'm going to answer no to this. That doesn't mean that I don't try to get rules correct. But what that means is that if somebody makes a mistake, misinterprets a rule, if there's maybe a little bit of ambiguity, I rarely am going to want to bring the game to a crashing halt. We'll try to figure out what's the rule here, maybe get a consensus. What do we think the rule book is getting at here? And then, you know, play it by that rule. Look, rules are when they're poorly written or they're ambiguous, you've got to do the best you can. I don't ever go out of my way to break rules, so if that makes me a rule stickler, then I guess I would be. But no, I don't think so. I also don't try to police too much what other people are doing. Other than there are certain games that I know if I'm teaching the game and I know that there are easily forgotten rules or edge cases or little nitpicky things, I will try to reinforce that. And I've gotten called out on that a little bit, like, make sure you remember you can only take one action on this, that type of a thing. But that's about it. That's as close as I get to being a rule stickler, I think. All right. I probably am very, very, very far behind. I'll try to scoot forward here a little bit. Oh boy, we're still talking about pasta. That's not good. I'm way, way behind. Okay, here we go. Here we go. What is your meeple color of choice? Well, it used to be purple until I started working for the Dice Tower, which that is Tom's color of choice. So I usually will go blue after that, which is nice because Z is usually green. Z is usually yellow. Roy is usually green, and Chris doesn't care. I've had a couple people ask about a top 10 in Tom's book. I don't know where he keeps that book, so I'm sorry. Cannot. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to go a little bit further down so that I don't get too far behind. Gator Dave asks, when teaching a game to a group of new players, do you hold back a little so as not to win or win by a lot? My gut instinct is telling me neither, that I try to just play, but that's, I would say that if I lean towards either, I would maybe be holding back a little bit. But I say this and I know that it comes across as self-deprecating because it is. But generally speaking, I'm usually not the best game player at any given table. All right, it's just the facts. I don't mind that. I don't, win a whole lot. I don't lose every game I play either. But, I don't consider myself to be just like this excellent game player. I think I do okay. Certain games better than others, of course, like anything else. But when I'm teaching a game, I do find that I end up winning even less than I typically do because I am paying very close attention to make sure that the comprehension is there, that I didn't miss anything, that I have presented the game in such a way that people don't feel lost, especially on the first couple of turns. Depending on the type of game it is, it's always great if you can play like even a partial first round and then reset. That's not always feasible or practical. But no, if I lean towards either, it's holding back, but I usually don't have to because generally speaking, when I'm playing games, it's usually with other gamers that are much better at games oftentimes than I am. So I don't need to hold back. I can just play at my regular skill level, and I might win, I might not. Let's take a look here. Sporadically bored is a lot of rubbish and a bit of board games. Thank you for the very entertaining portion. Yes, it very much is. Very much is. All right, I want to make sure I'm getting, man, I'm way behind. Way, 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 way behind. You're still talking about the DiLisio factor. Frozen pizza question. All right, we've got some food things here. Brett Bolsch asks, I know you enjoy solo play, but would you ever choose solo play over playing against someone, assuming they are an enjoyable individual to play against? Well, it's an interesting question, Brett, but I don't know that it's ever one of these either-or options that I have. I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I've been able to choose, do I play the game with somebody or do I play solo? So it's hard for me to answer this. I guess I would say that if I have my druthers, I'm going to play with people, especially people that I like or that are enjoyable to play against. So, no, I enjoy the social aspect of gaming very much. And that's how I started out playing games. Solo gaming kind of happened by accident for me, where I had a bunch of games relatively early on in my collection when I was very much in the acquisition phase of getting a whole bunch of games that I thought myself or people in my game group would like. I got a bit overwhelmed with games that I wasn't getting a chance to play, found out, hey, you can play some of these solo, tried it out and found that I really liked it. But they fulfill two very different things for me. Solo gaming typically is more of a meditative type of a puzzle working thing. It kind of keeps my brain active and sharp. At least I hope so. And so that's what I get out of it, kind of just a puzzle solving most often. But when I play games with others, it's usually a different, more of a social experience. So again, I don't know if I've ever had to make this choice, but you know, I would probably choose to play with people. Although I don't buy into these tropes and stereotypes of solo gamers only play solo because they have no one to play with. I don't get into that. I don't like that because it's very, you know, condescending or just talking down to people that just maybe legitimately enjoy playing solo games. Ooh, favorite dwellings of Elderdale faction. Oh, this is a hard one. I may have answered this before. I think I like the Ratlings. I think I like the Ratlings. Nathan asks, will you be playing the CMON Masters of the Universe game on the live stream? I believe that's the plan. Yes, I do believe that is the plan. And yeah, looking forward to it. I have the power! Okay. What other hobbies do you have outside of board games? Probably listening to music would be the biggest hobby I have at this point. Yeah, probably listening to music. I love music. It's kind of nice because I have some kindred spirits here in the studio. When I'm talking about kind of like the punk rock end of things, then I've got Kenny. Kenny and I share that kind of background in old school punk rock and hardcore music. And then when I get into more of like the metal end of things, I guess, then I can talk to Chris Yee about that. Although Chris is pretty open-minded from what I've found. I like to think I am too, into listening to different types of music. And so it's been nice to be able to talk music with people here at the studio as well. Gary Jans asks, what is the heaviest game, gameplay-wise, that you enjoy? This is a tough one. There's a few. I'll name a few. I like A Feast for Odin a whole lot, and I think that's a pretty heavy game. I like Tricarion, and I think that that's a very heavy game. You know, pretty much any of the Mind Clash games. I like Anachrony and Cerebria, and those are all very heavy. I like the Gallerist a fair amount, the Lacerda game. So those probably would be the heaviest games that I like. Kingsburg or Artemis Project? Wow, it's been ages since I've played Kingsburg. I would probably go Artemis Project. Probably. Yeah, I think I would go Artemis Project on that. Michael, I will not be able to give you exact numbers here by not even close, honestly. How many games do you have in your personal collection? What percentage of them is soloable? So I don't know exactly how many I have now. When I moved to Florida from Indianapolis, I got rid of a lot of games. Sold some, gave some away. I still brought a significant number down here. I want to say right now I'm probably somewhere in the range of 300, maybe somewhere in that ballpark area. Now I could probably go out and go home and count them and feel like I'm way off, but I think it's somewhere in that range. As far as soloable, I would guess probably 80%. That's probably a pretty safe estimate. It is a big factor to me on purchasing a game. Does it have a solo variant? It's not exclusive. I have Ankh. There are certain, games that just don't really suit themselves well to solo play. And if I'm still interested, then I'll still get it. But most of my games have a solo variant. Christopher Francis asks, what did you think of solo games like Black Sonata or Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden? I like both of those games quite a bit. Black Sonata is very unique, a solo-only kind of deduction game that has this really interesting system where you've got these small cards that have a little like holes punched out of them, and you're trying to determine where on the board a particular character is, who this character is. A really neat little solo game. And Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden is a kind of like a spatial puzzle where you're playing out different types of vegetables out into a garden, and you're trying to win prizes for having the best garden with some very, very unique, some find frightening or disturbing art. I like the art quite a bit. I like both of those games, Christopher. Oh my gosh, it's already 12:46. I feel like we've barely gotten started. And I've missed so many questions. Scylla asks, Mike, do you even play games for fun anymore that you work for the Dice Tower? Inquiring minds want to know. That's a great question. Yeah, I absolutely do. I do. Obviously not as much as I used to because this is my job now. But it's interesting because even playing games for the purpose of a review obviously can still turn out to be very fun. It's not like I'm miserable when I'm reviewing games, playing games for the purpose of a review, even if it's a game I don't particularly end up loving. So just games are inherently fun. That's why I'm, in this hobby. So I get what your question is, though. I think your question is really specifically, do you maybe choose old favorites or games that are going to have no content attached to them at all? And the answer is yes, I do. I try to make sure that I do that just so I can keep that kind of love for my games. Now, I am very much a cult of the new gamer. I was like that before I ever got associated with the Dice Tower. I always like to discover new games, but I do have old favorites that I like to come back to. Would you consider coming to the UK Games Expo next year? James, I'd love to. This is not my call, though. This would be coming from Tom to determine if we were to be going to the UK Games Expo next year. I have no idea, outside of obviously the Dice Tower events. I have no idea what we're going to be going to convention-wise next year, but I would absolutely adore it. I've been to the UK once, and I had a wonderful time, and I would love to go back. A Scythe question. I'm having trouble deciding between buying a completely new board game or Scythe: The Rise of Fenris. Would you say that Fenris is worth buying over a whole new game? And thank you for letting me know you love Scythe. That helps me answer this question. But again, this is a question I think. Oh, okay, I'll ask you a couple of questions, and your answers to those might determine how I would go with this. First of all, do you like campaign games? Because really the Rise of Fenris, the main appeal to it is that it has a nice little campaign, I believe an 8-game campaign. So if you like campaign games and you love Scythe, that would kind of put a tick in that's favor. Do Do you feel like you've played out of Scythe a little bit? That would be another tick in its favor. Do you not play Scythe very often? Then maybe go for a new game. Yeah, this is a hard one to answer. It really kind of depends on, I think, those things. Do you like campaign games, and do you feel like you need a little bit of reinvigoration to play Scythe? That would determine. Otherwise, get a new game, because it's about the cost of a standard game, I would say. Oof. What is the most important thing for a solo guide or cheat sheet to include? Asking as we're making one. This is really, 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 really tricky. The most important thing, gosh, it's hard for me to choose. The most important thing is for it to be clearly written. I say that for the rule book in general. Maybe to have, if you can, and it depends on the type of solo game, if you have an AI opponent, to make sure that it's very clear what the AI does on its turn. The order of operations can be very, very important. So have a clear order of operations for what the AI does. That's important. For any type of a cheat sheet, you want to make sure that if you have iconography, that you've got a nice little guide to the iconography there, things along those lines. Like someone brought up earlier, the Imperium Classics and Legends, and while, again, I think it's a fantastic game and a really, really good solo game, one of the things that I would have loved, it has its own dedicated solo rulebook, which is also fantastic, but I would have liked to have had, since this is a game about civilizations that all play slightly different and all have unique keywords, in the way they handle it in that game is they've got at the end of the book just a list of charts. And so if you're playing against the Macedonian AI, you would find the Macedonian charts, and they've got 2, and you would just refer to whatever card flip over, you would refer to this. I thought it would have been great if they had those on double-sided cards. I understand cost-wise it may have cost a little bit more, but that would have been great, something along those lines. So Alex, I don't know if I answered your question very well. I apologize. All right, so Mon Lily, as a newbie to board games, are the Dice Tower cons, retreats, cruises, etc. worth attending in your opinion? At the moment, we aren't interested in campaigns or war games. All right, well, first of all, I have to say that I am not objective in this. I'm an employee of the Dice Tower. However, I will tell you this, that I attended Dice Tower cons before I was an employee of the Dice Tower. I think they're spectacular. I really honestly do feel, and you take it with as many grains of salt as you like, since I'm an employee. But I do think they're spectacular conventions. They have the great mix. First of all, you get access to a tremendous gaming library. And if you're not interested in war games or campaigns or legacy games or card games, if you're not interested in any of those things, there's going to be something, whatever you're interested in, there'll be representatives of it in this library, because it is just a very carefully cultivated library by Tom, who's been in this hobby for so many years that he has a very good handle on what a well-cultivated board game library looks like. I mean, he could probably be a consultant if he chose to on board gaming libraries, because he puts a lot of time, thought, effort into making this the very best library that it can be. So for that reason alone, I think it's a tremendous experience to go to these conventions. Now, I haven't seen the Dice Tower West library other than in pictures, but it looks also like it's going to be fantastic. So I don't think you're really, losing anything there. Also, I feel like the people are remarkably friendly. I feel like, the Dice Tower crew and the contributors, we try to make ourselves as available as possible when we can. And so if you're interested in playing with people on the channel, oftentimes we can make that happen. And so if that sounds interesting to you, and it's financially feasible and geographically feasible, we'd love to see you there, and hopefully you can make it if it's something you're interested in. right, I'm trying to see if I get a little bit further. Oh, Darren, thank you for correcting me. I think you are right. This is not, the Val Kilmer documentary called Val is not on Netflix. It's on Amazon Prime, at least in the United States. Thank you. Board Game Co. Alex, well, given the question about the expensive game, what's the best game under $35 that you'd swear by? This is hard, man. There's a lot of great games under 35 bucks. I mean, but you're probably looking at like card games and things like along those lines. So this is a lot of pressure here. I don't know. I mean, I like Port Royal a lot, if that's still available. I'm terrible at remembering what games are available. A little push your luck. There's a ton of little Knizia card games that I think would be great for under 35 bucks. I'm also just trying to think of what games now are under 35 bucks. Even honestly, a lot of the Prospero Hall games that you can get now at Target are really Horrified. I mean, that's a great game under $35. So I do feel like there's a market now that's being kind of opened up, that games that would have been considered mass market before and maybe still are on a practical level mass market are a really good board gaming experience. So kind of put me on the spot there, and I don't think I answered well. There's like probably 100 games I'm missing, but you could still find good games out there for less than 35 bucks. Oh, I'm so close to running out of time. All right, I'm going to scroll way down to the bottom and see if I can hit some of the, oh my gosh, I feel awful. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna scroll up now. Rob Edmonds, if you can fix one thing in the whole of board gaming, what would it be? I think my soapbox right now, I mentioned it earlier, I kind of toyed with it earlier, is rule books. It's the most frustrating aspect of this hobby for me personally. It is so clear to me when a game has not been blind tested with just the rule book. And I think that that is the minimum standard that you should have as a publisher for your game. If a group of people cannot sit down at a table and learn a game only from your rule book without you standing over them answering questions, you have not done a good enough job at writing your rules. I'm sorry, this drives me crazy. It happens far too much, and it's not only with Kickstarter games or crowdfunded games. It might be more prevalent there. I do think it's probably more prevalent there, where you find rule books that are less than stellar. But it feels like more and more publishers are expecting their rule books to be crowdsourced. Like, oh, they'll figure it out. They'll find all the errata, all the people that are going to play it during the first month or two that it comes out will come up with this massive list of FAQs and errata, and we'll pop it up on BGG. That's not good enough. That's not good enough, and it's also not fair to expect that anybody that picks up your game is going to even know that Board Game Geeks exists. Don't do this, publishers. Blind playtest your rule books. It's driving me, anyway, sorry Rob, you got me on my soapbox. This is my biggest frustration in board gaming right now. All right, I don't want to end on a negative though, so I'm going to find some other stuff here. Scrolling backwards now. Chris says that some of the most fun and hilarious moments have come from playing terrible games for the job. That is absolutely true, Chris. That is very true, and it is not because we are mocking them relentlessly. Let's find out here. What's my opinion on print and play solo variants for games that don't have them out of the box? It's fine, especially if they are officially done by the designer. I know that may sound stupid, but it bothers me in the same way that house ruling bothers me. Although there are some people out there that have created fantastic solo variants, and many of them that have actually gone on to become paid solo variant creators. So I don't want to say that this is, only this, but I know like something like Whistle Mountain and Cryo have recently come out with print and play solo variants to those games that are official from the designer. I think that's great. I've got no problem with that. I actually want to try both of those. I have not had a chance to yet, but yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Which of your current Kickstarter projects are you most excited about? So it's a couple of them. I'm very, very, very much excited about Merchants of the Dark Road from Elf Creek Games. I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm also very, very much looking forward to Endless Winter, Paleo-Americans. I think, fingers crossed, both are supposed to be coming out by the end of the year. So those are two off the top of my head that I'm very much looking forward to, and hope that they arrive to me as soon as possible. What is your early reaction to Return to Dark Tower? So we did a playthrough of this on the channel. If you are interested, you can kind of check that out. Justin from Restoration Games came here and helped us run through a game of Return to Dark Tower. I enjoyed it. It's very impressive technology, and I think that they still were working a bit on the technology at the point that we played that solo, not solo, we played that playthrough. I think you can play it solo. It looks like it's significantly more of a quote-unquote game than the original Dark Tower game was, which was much more of a light mass market type of a feel. This is a bit more of a crunchy, cooperative game. It looks like it has the potential to be quite difficult, and so no, I'm very much excited about it. I hope that that it comes soon. And I didn't back that one, and I'm kind of really wishing I had, especially after playing it again. I played an early prototype of it at Dice Tower West a couple of years ago. No, Dice Tower East, sorry, a couple of years ago, and I had good first impressions. That was still when it was just paperboard, and then when we played it this time, it's almost complete at that point. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. All right, I'm already over time. I'm already over time, everybody. It goes too quickly. It goes way too quickly. We've got too many good questions. We've got too many fantastic people. Anyway, this was a joy and a pleasure, and I very much enjoyed it. And I'm hoping that you're going to come back around tomorrow. Tomorrow, I believe, is Roy. Is that correct? Yeah, I think tomorrow is Roy, and then I think Friday is Chris with a Q&A. So keep your eyes open for that. Keep your eyes open for the top 10 that Roy, Chris, and myself are going to do this Thursday. Top 10 games that nail the theme, that are perfect for their theme. Looking forward to doing that. And remember, we had a contest. So after this video ends, you can go back to the beginning if you missed it. They're for a $10 Game Nerd certificate. All right, well, anyway, that's it for me. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from Dice Tower headquarters.